And thank you for the opportunity to have this introductory presentation at this conference. And my talk I have entitled Ranging Profiles of Slow-Growing Chickens versus Their Welfare, Physiology and Appearance. And as you have mentioned, I work in Poland. I work at the Institute of Genetics and Animal Biotechnology, leading the Animal Welfare and Behavior department. And yes, indeed, I have been involved mainly in research on welfare of meat poultry, including broiler chickens, turkeys, and laying hens recently. So I hope having my animal welfare focused in my research, I hope this talk will still be in line with the focus of this conference. And I would like to present some outcomes of studies we have conducted within a Free Birds project, which has just finished after 3 years, and it has focused on poultry reared in organic and low input production systems, to which I will be referring during my presentation. So increased public concerns of animal welfare and sustainability in conventional production systems led consumers to be more interested in poultry meat reared from birds reared in low input systems. And in those systems, housing and management aim for optimizing health and welfare of the chickens. In EU organic systems, as one of those low input systems, birds are provided with ranging areas. And here, just to show why I work with organic production systems in EU, this is a raising sector of the poultry production. And as you can see in the graph, the organic share of poultry in EU has an annual growth for poultry of about 10%, which is fairly a lot. So just moving on again to organic poultry, it involves both production of eggs by laying hens and meat by broiler chickens, and there are some rules about how to rear those birds, fairly strict. So in laying hens, there can be maximum 3,000 birds per compartment and maximum 18,000 per house, which is much lower to standard conventional systems. There can be maximum 6 birds per square meters indoors, and outdoors minimum, there has to be provided minimum 4 square meters per bird. And for broiler chickens, there is a maximum of 4,800 birds per compartment. And again, birds need to have at least 4 square meters per bird outside. And inside, the limit is on 10 birds or 20 kilograms of meat of birds per square meter. And no coccidiostats and other standardly used veterinary medicine can be used. And birds are slower growing than conventional broilers. They are reared up to around 70 days. And it's maybe also worth to mention that nowadays in Europe, there is an increasing interest in dual purpose breeds, which are also slow growing birds. But for the moment, let's stay with the division, the traditional simple division of the birds. So, as I have mentioned, in those systems, organic or low input, it is a standard procedure or a requirement even to provide birds with the outdoor runs. And actually consumers expect the birds to stay outdoors. And at the same time, going outside may improve chicken welfare. However, in some farms, the number of birds that actually have access to the outdoors, but which really use them, is limited. And just to have a quick overview, what actually are the positive aspects of outdoor ranges next to the better welfare, it's also that birds have access to more enriched environment that is closer to their natural requirements. Therefore, they can perform more natural behaviors, and they are occupied with many things except of just being indoors. So there is less injurious pecking observed. Of course, if those birds go outside, and if they have something to do outside, for example, foraging. And naturally, if some birds from the flock are outside, then the stocking density indoors is being decreased. And on the other hand, there are also some negative aspects of the outdoor ranges, which are, for example, predators. And as you can see in the picture taken by Monique Bestman, who was our Dutch partner in the project, which I will come back to in details in few slides. You can see that Monique took a picture of the predator, and there is really low chance for the bird, for the chicken to survive the attack. And there is a really nice, if you'd be interested in this subject, there is a really nice new publication by Monique that is entitled Predation in Organic and Free Range, actually egg production, but still it covers well the subject. Another negative aspect of outdoor ranges is biosecurity, and especially if birds consume feed outside. And of course, nowadays, with the big concern of the environmental issues caused by animal production, we shouldn't forget about soil nutrient overload in the outdoor ranges after they are being used by the birds. So actually, what has been found so far about the ranges, there is more laying hens can be seen outdoors in the smaller flocks. And they also, if the buildings are designed in the way that the light intensity between indoor and outdoor is lower, then there is higher chance that we will see more birds outdoors. They'll be more motivated to leave the house. And of course, naturally, if the pop holes are large and spacious, and then the birds are more keen to leave the house. And birds also like to be outside if there is vegetation and shelters and some other varied structures outdoors. And in the flocks that are more outside, there is less intestinal parasites, and there is, as I mentioned before, reduced incidence of feather damages and pecking. And here I have been talking more about laying hens, even though the presentation should be about broiler chickens. However, up till now, a large majority of the studies has focused on laying hens. So we had to look for information considering laying hens, and just new knowledge is being established for broiler chickens. So coming back to the work which has been done, Free Birds is the acronym of the project, which full title is Optimizing the Use of the Free Range as the Key to Improve Organic Layer and Broiler Chicken Production. And this project was a core organic project. Core Organic is an ERANET, a network of European ministries and research councils funding research in organic food systems at national levels. And actually, I have seen previous presentations in the cattle session, which were presented also to other projects funded within the same scheme. And our countries that participated in this project were Denmark, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Sweden, Turkey, and Belgium. So moving on, we got the funding our institute got the funding in 2018, and the aims of the project were exactly to establish relations between chickens' free-range use and bird health, welfare, and performance, but also to develop smart tools and management strategies to optimize the free-range use as the key to improve organic chicken production. And we were involved in work package 3, focusing on parasite and gut health, and in work package 5, sustainability of different bird strains. So, since this conference is focused on particular region of Europe, and Poland is part of the Central Eastern Europe, I would like to give some, set the scene for the organic production in Poland. So Poland remains the largest EU chicken producer, which produces about 20% of EU chicken production. However, Poland covers only less than 0.5% of the EU organic food market value. And on average, a Polish person would spend €60 per year on organic products. This gives us between 6th and 9th rank in the number. We also have the 6th and 9th. I'm sorry. We have this. So this I hope it passes by. So we are ranked between 6th and 9th in the number of certified organic farms in EU. I'm sorry, I think I lost my voice.
Don't worry, don't worry.
Sorry.
We have the time. We have the time.
So wasn't expecting that. I'll try. So we only have we only cover in Poland. In Poland, only 4% of the livestock production is organic. And it's much lower than in Western Europe countries. So in this presentation, I would like to cover 4 focus areas. So I would like to talk about animal welfare, gastrointestinal tract morphometrics, small intestine microstructure, amount of pasture and feed ingested. About 3rd focus area, weather conditions, and visual appearance of 2 strains of chickens, and in association to their range use. All of those subjects and parts of the project, the studies, 4 studies, have been covered already in publications that were published over the last 2 years. So if anyone will be interested in more details that I will present, please refer to the papers that are published. So going to technicalities of the study, our data were based on the studies which were conducted in Poland at our institute in summer of 2018. And we have used 2 genetic strains of birds. You may be familiar with the SASSO C44, which is a commonly used in Europe slow-growing commercial strain of the birds. And we also used a native dual-purpose breed, Polish breed green-legged partridge. And you can see the pictures of both birds. On the left, there is SASSO, on the right, there is green-legged partridge. So in our building, actually half of the building, we had 12 pens with outdoor runs. In each pen, there were 10 birds. And we collected data from week 5, when actually birds are encouraged or allowed to go outdoors, until week 10. And we had video cameras installed outside and inside. So we had one camera covering 2 outdoor ranges. And for recognition, birds were tagged with a laminated color tag. So we could see from the videos exactly the individual bird, and they were noted individually. So coming back to the 2 genetic strains, we have decided SASSO, since it is known for its good health, high quality, and high quality of meat. And green-legged partridge is a dual-purpose heritage Polish breed. And both those genetic birds from both genetic strains are well adjusted to outdoor conditions. However, they differ fairly a lot in their exterior, because SASSO is known as a colored chicken, and green-legged partridge has a wild type coloration. And here in the picture, you can see green-legged partridges. However, it is important to consider that they are not comparable in size, and their growth rates are differing very much. So in our experimental design, we matched birds by age, not by developmental phase or by body weight at slaughter. And SASSO slaughter age is around 11 weeks. And for green-legged partridges, it is 5 months. So if we would allow green-legged partridges to reach their slaughter age, then we would encounter different seasonal and weather effects for both breeds. And this, of course, can influence their free-ranging behavior. On the other hand, if we would extend rearing period in SASSO, this could be too long rearing period for them, and they could encounter some health issues. So with regard to the range use and how we approached this subject, it is important again to realize that not all birds in the flock access the outdoor ranges, even when the opportunity is provided. And the outdoor ranges provided in commercial poultry farms are usually exposed to high variability of environmental conditions, weather, and they are less predictable for the birds than controlled indoor housing conditions. And very often the outdoor runs provide no shelter or little shelter, and there is a risk of predation. So some individuals may not be prone to leave the house. They can be fearful, and they can never actually leave the house during the production. So in 2016, Campbell, for the first time, again in laying hens, not in broiler chickens, presented an approach to divide birds into ranging profiles. And this profiling attempt has not been performed previously in meat-purpose chickens, but we have tried to do that. And we ranked the birds based on the range use frequency, and we distributed them into 3 ranging profiles. So we had birds we called outdoor preferring ranging profile, we had moderate outdoor ranging profile birds, and we had indoor preferring ranging profile birds. So here in the table, I thought it would be good to show how we divided the birds, because we spent some time thinking how to do that, and there are 2 ways to do that. We thought first of dividing birds into 3 equal groups, and especially we had 120 birds, it would be nice to have them in 3 equal numbered groups. But then we encountered a problem that some birds use the outdoor ranges in the same frequency. So and this ruined our equal division of the groups. So we found a way using a rank frequency distribution, and we have applied it. So we had unequal number of birds in each group. However, each bird was assigned a rank frequency, and those were divided into the ranging profile groups. So we ended up with having investigations on various levels. Obviously, production system was predefined by the project call. We had those two genetic strains, so SASSO and green-leg partridges. We had flock divided into 12 pens, living in 12 pens. We had the ranging profiles, which I have just mentioned. And we also had individual recognition of each bird. And for various studies, we focused on various levels, where I will mention why it was sometimes not possible to go all the way down to the individual level. So first focus area was animal welfare, and despite consumers' belief that access to an outdoor range improves chicken welfare, still little is known if it's true. So this is more the wish of the consumers, but it is not that sure actually. It hasn't been confirmed by very many studies. So obviously there were studies showing some improvement in welfare, in breast plumage, cover, gait scores, and cardiovascular function, and a reduction in weight. This was proven for Ross 308, for example. But this effect on welfare may differ for various slower growing chicken genetic strains. And ranging profiles in hens were strongly associated to coping styles, and coping styles are also related to levels of stress and disease vulnerability. So welfare condition of birds presenting different ranging profiles may vary. And we, in this study focusing on welfare, we had selected some welfare indicators which we evaluated on the scale from 0 to 2. We evaluated plumage condition, compacking wounds, skin injuries, dirtiness, toe damage, eye pathologies, foot pad dermatitis, and hog burns. We looked for existence or presence or not of respiratory infections and diarrhea. And we evaluated on the scale 0 to 5 walking ability. And from our results, we found an interaction effect between genetic strain and ranging profile on respiratory infections. So indoor preparing green-leg partridges scored higher, overall higher in respiratory infections as compared to other ranging profiles. And we think it is possible that more frequent use of outdoor ranges has a beneficial effect on the respiratory tract condition. Since the birds spend more time outside, they are less exposed to the climatic conditions inside the house. And in case the moderate and outdoor preferring birds, their more frequent outdoor use is likely to minimize problems caused by dust and poor litter quality indoors. And overall higher than in the green-leg partridges, respiratory disease rate was observed in SASSO, in all ranging profiles. And we believe that since SASSO are characterized by faster growth as compared to green-leg partridges, this could actually worsen the quality of litter in which they stayed. And also another part of the explanation is that they may have relatively smaller respiratory organs as compared to their body size, and they have obviously faster metabolic turnover rates, and this can make them more prone to respiratory infections. And overall, here I'm not presenting all the results, but SASSO were scored worse with regard to footpad dermatitis, plumage condition, compacting wounds, dirtiness, and toe damage. And toe damages were more frequent in indoor birds as compared to other ranging profiles. And this toe damage was also positively associated to walking difficulty. And it is known that obviously exercise helps to develop stronger bones. However, it is not sure that the direction of the causal relationship is not sure for this association. Is it that birds that go outside more often have stronger bones and have less toe damages, or is it that birds that already indoors have some leg issues are less prone to leave the house? So to sum up this part of the study, implications for animal welfare, which we summed up, are that actually to implement strategies which would encourage chickens to use the outdoor area. It is necessary for the producers to be sure that actually it is worth doing it, that the outdoor access helps the welfare of birds, as when we compare outdoor preferring to indoor preferring moderate outgoing birds. And we believe that we found such associations so not only between ranging profiles, but we found some differences in genetic strains. And as I have mentioned, further research is needed to establish the causal relationship between range use and indicators of bird welfare, because it remains unknown whether actually it is the use of the outdoor areas which prevents development of welfare issues, or if birds with suboptimal welfare actually become indoor preferring individuals. And again, this study can be, the full study is in Poultry Science. So another focus area was the gastrointestinal tract, its morphometrics, microstructure of the small intestine, and the amount of pasture and feed ingested. So it is known that optimal gastrointestinal tract development is crucial for nutrient absorption and essential for poultry to resist diseases and assure, of course, birds' welfare. And the birds which go outside consume quantities of material which they find outside, like plants, insects, but also stones. And in this study, we hypothesized that the frequency of the outdoor range use may be associated with the ingested material and the development of the bird's gut. So we aim to investigate the gastrointestinal tract morphometrics. We did some measurements on the histological images of the intestine, and we measured the amount of pasture originating material and feed in birds' stomach. And again, this study was conducted on the ranging profile level. So we again divided all the birds in 3 ranging profiles groups. But here it is important to underline that this study was conducted separately for SASSO and green-necked partridges, because they differ very much in their size and body weight and the growth rates. So if probably we would discover, if we would run the comparisons together for both breeds, or the obvious size differences would be stronger than the confounding effects of ranging profiles. So moving on to the results, in terms of their height and area, were the lowest for indoor preferring SASSO as compared to outdoor preferring ones. And those intestinal villi, so the small parts of the intestine, which you could see on the histological picture, play a very important role in the final phase of nutrient digestion and assimilation. And therefore, we suspect that the indoor preferring SASSO birds could be characterized by the poorest digestion and assimilation potential. And moving on to the stomachs, in the crops of the moderate indoor green-leg partridges, there was significantly more pasture matter as compared to the other ranging profiled birds of that breed. We didn't find this effect in SASSO. However, we of course naturally expected to see more of that green matter or anything found in the pasture in outdoor preferring birds, but this wasn't the case. And in broiler chickens of slow-growing genotypes, birds' performance primarily depends on the food intake of the cereal-based feed, which is normally provided to the birds indoors. However, in another study, the increased pasture intake actually improved the consumption of that cereal feed that is provided indoors. While in contradictory to those studies, another study showed that the ingestion of plant particles by domestic poultry actually reduced their intake of compound feed without affecting performance. However, neither of that was the case in our study, and this was above the scope of our study, but it would be interesting to see actually what happened in this case. And we also run correlations between the gastrointestinal tract and its content measurements, and those were found for both, but they were different for each breed. So we suspect here that the underlying reason could be the degree of genetic selection, of course, higher for SASSO and lower for green-necked partridges, and resulting in different speed of development of the organs and growth rates. So the implications of that study for practice is that the optimal gut development is important for the efficiency of nutrient absorption and ability of poultry to resist disease, which of course is important in practice, and the level of the development of the gastrointestinal tract and its content may actually be considered as a potential retrospective indicator of the bird's ranging profile. So by looking at the gastrointestinal tract development, we could evaluate if the bird was using the range area often. And we also think that it would be interesting to look at to study links between intestinal microflora, gastrointestinal tract measurements, and the behavior and emotional states, which is a very emerging subject. And however, with regard to range use, it hasn't been explored much. So another focus area in our studies were the weather conditions, and outdoor environmental conditions, of course, influence animal comfort. So obviously air temperature, relative humidity, and speed of air movement can affect how birds feel. And comfort zone related to weather parameters for free-range broilers has not been investigated yet, which resulted in the fact that, of course, there were many studies in conventional broilers, and we know what's their comfort zone, but in free-range birds, this is not that obvious, and it hasn't been defined. On the other hand, again, ranging areas in commercial production are very long. They are open spaces with little shelter, as you can see in the picture. Maybe that's not conventional, not common for Europe. Probably picture is not from Europe, but still the ranges are long. And if shelter is present, it is often unavailable to all birds in the flock, at once. So if some adverse weather conditions happen, not all the birds can hide outside, and probably they would run indoors. So, and it's also common, not only that not all the birds can hide, but it's also that probably farmers usually provide one type of shelter, and then not all the birds can hide from all types of weather conditions. So if they have wind protections or sun screens, there is just one type of shelter provided. And this is especially important since single type shelters don't fulfill protective role to all birds within the flock, especially if there would be differences between individuals, how they react to the same particular weather conditions. So in our study, we tried to overcome those difficulties, and previous studies usually average the breed or treatment group range used. So in this case, this averaging actually covered the particular changing on very quick rate, on instant changing weather conditions. And in our study, we collected data each minute throughout the whole experiment, and we didn't do it by hand. It was done by the automatic weather station. But then we did it by hand to exactly match individual bird range access with those instantly changing weather parameters. So if the sunshine, if the sun was hiding behind the clouds, or if the wind direction has changed, we have matched that with the individual birds range access. So again, summing up the results and just highlighting findings, we found associations between weather parameters and range use for about 30% of green-legged partridge and SASSO chickens, and weather explained up to 35% of the range use variability. And between breeds, range use associations with different weather parameters were identified. So we also found negative associations with relative humidity for green-legged partridges, and it is obvious that chickens tend to avoid wetting their feathers, and they don't like this, to spend time preening their feather to come back to the good shape. And we haven't found this for SASSO, since SASSO are also adapted to tropical conditions, where in Poland in August and September, especially in the mornings, we can have some periods of weather that reminds tropical conditions. Therefore, we suspect this association wasn't found for SASSO. On the other hand, we found positive association with atmospheric pressure in SASSO chickens, and the higher atmospheric pressure and warm climate, as is in Poland in the summer, is usually associated with no precipitation and weak wind conditions, which is preferred by the chickens. However, it is not exactly sure why this was found only for SASSO chickens. And among green-legged partridges and SASSO, range use was associated to wind direction and negatively to the wind speed. And obviously the wind speed, higher wind speed, influences the ability of chickens to predict the coming danger. So they are not keen to be outside exposed to the predators if the wind makes it more difficult for them to sense the coming danger. And again, the wind direction is very often southwest, and west wind is connected to good weather. So therefore, probably they preferred that kind of wind direction. And as implication to weather conditions, we have evidences that birds react individually to the same weather conditions. So they differ in their reaction to the same weather. This could be a good argument to convince free-range meat-purpose chicken producers to implement strategies which encourage birds to use the outdoor areas more often. And ranging areas should be designed to accommodate not only one general need, but also individual preferences and needs for the most optimal use of the range, for example, by including provision of multiple construction and vegetation elements. So, Antonia, you have appeared. Is the time?
We should slowly come to an end. If you have, like, I don't know how quickly you can wrap it up.
I can wrap it up. I had one more study, but I can move on to conclusions. And
Thank you.
We have one more slide. And okay, so to sum up the studies I have presented, the conclusions would be that we were able to divide birds into ranging profiles, and this actually helped to better describe their range use and health and welfare than only by comparing genetic strains. And again, this was done for the first time in broiler chickens. And evidences were found that outdoor preferring birds present better welfare as indoor preferring and moderate outgoing birds, which is important finding. And we still are not sure exactly about indoor preferring birds, and they require further characterization. So actually we have another part of the data which focuses on the indoor birds. Again, gastrointestinal tract health and function parameters were associated to range use frequency. And regarding the birds' preferences, they have individual reactions to the same weather. So it's not that all birds are not in favor of some wind, or not all of them want to spend time under the same conditions. And though this should motivate the farmers to introduce individual range use optimization strategies for their best production outcomes. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions.